Hi, I'm Fraser Douglas, the avid tent camper. In this video, I want to show you my Camp Axe collection. And I want to tell you why this 1 3/4 pound Collins head mounted on a 24-inch Beaver Tooth handle is the best camp axe I have ever used. This size is frequently called a pack axe or a forest axe, and it is the size that was highly recommended by Mors Kohansky, the famous Canadian wilderness instructor. I bought my first camp axe back in 1967 when I was around 21 years old, and since then I have bought dozens of camp axes to split firewood and perform other common camping chores. Over these past 53 years, I have used camp axes with a wide variety of head shapes, head weights, and handle lengths. For example, in this photo across the top, you'll see a trade axe or tomahawk on the far left side, a Nessmuk-style double-bit camp axe in the center, and a hewing axe on the right. In the center, you'll see two Hudson Bay style axe heads on the left and two Dayton-style axe heads on the right. And at the bottom, you'll see a half hatchet or carpenter's hatchet. The weights of these heads have ranged from a heavy 4 pounds down to an ultra-light 3/4 pound head. And the handle lengths have ranged from a long 36-inch felling or falling axe down to a 9-inch pocket axe. I have used several axes with steel or composite handles, but I much prefer axes with wooden hickory or ash handles. My favorite axes are vintage Collins axes. The Collins Axe Company was founded in 1826 in Canton, Connecticut. Soon after it was founded, the name of this town changed to Collinsville. Over the next 131 years, the Collins Company became the world's biggest maker of axes and other farm implements. A devastating flood in 1955 destroyed much of the factory, and after struggling for 11 years, the factory closed in 1966 and its name was sold to a foreign axe maker. You can find these old Collins axes on eBay and in some flea markets, but most of the time their handles are broken or rotten, and their heads are rusty. So I buy the old rusty head on eBay, usually for less than $20, remove the rust, put a new handle on it, make an overstrike collar, make a sheath, and drill a lanyard hole. Here is my collection of axes sold by Sears and Roebuck Company. Most of them were made by craftsmen, but the two on the bottom left were made by other companies. And this is my collection of axes made in Europe. The two on the left were made in Germany. The first one is a Helco with a 1.5 pound head, and the second one is a steel Rhineland pattern axe, which I personally like very much. In the center are three Holtz Brooks axes that are made in Sweden. The one at the top is the old camp axe that I bought back in 1967. And the three on the right are axes that were made by the S.A. Wetterlings Company, a Swedish company that just closed about 2 years ago. Before telling you why I like my Collins axe so much, let me describe the typical camp chores that a family would likely perform. The primary task of a camp axe is to split large pieces of firewood into smaller, usable pieces of stove wood and kindling. Sometimes you can find deadfall laying on the ground, and you could use your camp axe to trim away the small limbs on the side, but you would use a small saw to cut it into firewood lengths. But most of the time you would buy your firewood in bundles either from the camp store or from a nearby vendor. And you should know that all state and federal parks forbid cutting standing trees, even if it appears dead. Occasionally you might use your camp axe to make a walking stick, a tent stake, or some other object that you might need around camp. As I've previously stated in other videos, if you only need to split a small amount of firewood to make a campfire or two during your camping trip, then this Estwing Camper's Axe 14, I believe, is the best axe you can buy for less than $50. To learn more about this particular axe, you can watch my previously recorded video review. But if you frequently cook with wood and need to split a lot of stove wood and kindling, that metal handle and lightweight head make it uncomfortable to use. So let me tell you why I like my restored Collins forest axe. First of all, I like an axe head that weighs between 1.5 and 2 pounds because they require very little downward effort at the top of the swing and very little stopping effort at the bottom of the swing. In contrast, the pocket axe shown at the bottom with a head weight of less than 1 pound and the scout axe shown second from the bottom with a head weight between 1 and 1.5 pounds require more downward effort in order to split through wood, and they require more stopping effort if you accidentally glance off to the side of the wood or split through the wood faster than you expect. In other words, gravity does most of the work, and yet the head is light enough to control. Second, the handle of 24 inches is long enough to use both hands for swinging, but yet short enough to allow one hand use, and is able to absorb all of the shock from repeatedly striking pieces of firewood. In contrast, pocket axes and scout axes can only be used with one hand, and the handle does not absorb all of the shock. Third, I like the Dayton head shape because it has a relatively small overstrike zone. The overstrike zone is defined as the shoulder or the area of the wooden handle that is just under the axe head. It's called the overstrike zone because it is very easily damaged by accidental overstrikes. And repeated damage to this area is the primary cause of handle breakage. In this photo, you can see that the overstrike zones of the Hudson Bay pattern in the center and the Rhineland pattern to the right are much larger than the overstrike zone of the Collins Dayton pattern. The fourth reason I like this axe is its head geometry. In contrast to some camp axes, such as the Fiskars shown on the left, you can see that the cheeks of the head are very thin, like the Estwing Camper's Axe. Consequently, the axe drives deep into a piece of firewood on the first blow, where it can be batoned all the way through. Furthermore, the head face is almost flat across the center line. In contrast, most other American-made camp axes have an elevated center line with tapered cheeks on either side. This elevated center line is intended to prevent the axe from sticking in the wood, but I want my axe to stick in the wood, and the elevated center line pushes the wood down toward the wooden handle where it will be more likely to create overstrike damage. And finally, I like this Collins axe because of its brand name, which means that they used a good quality steel that was hardened correctly so that it will accept and hold a sharp edge and not bend or break. And because it means that the eye was properly shaped so that it will hold tight to a wooden handle. If you'd rather buy a new camp axe that's approximately the same size, here are some good choices. Well, I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and I hope that you've learned a little bit about camp axes. I hope it helps you decide what type of camp axe is best suited for your own particular needs. For more information about important features to consider when buying a camp axe, please visit my website, moderntentcamping.com. Remember, take more trips, travel further, visit more attractions, and save money. Go tent camping.